Xianian Hao to all my Chinese brothers and sisters who recently celebrated the New Year's. In honor of Chinese New Year 2025, I want to dedicate this life lesson that I learned from one of my good friends who gifted me this valuable story on how people should treat each other. A few years back, I was with a dear friend of mine who took me to a delicious tea house in southern China. Somehow we ended up getting into a thought-provoking conversation about a philosophical Chinese concept on the difference between heaven and hell. Interesting topic. I want to share with you that story we discussed as it can teach us a lot about life and how we should be treating each other. The story goes something like this. A traveler wants to know what's the difference between heaven and hell. So to figure it out, he decides to visit both places. He first goes to hell and sees what's going on there. He looks around and realizes the place looks a lot like a rural Chinese village. He looks afar off and sees majestic mountains framing the horizon. A charming village lies all around the foothill, and he notices a river of rice soup flowing serenely through the middle of the village. As the traveler is walking around the village, he starts noticing the inhabitants. He's shocked at how gauntly and malnourished the villagers appear. The people look scrawny and their faces were carrying a deep sadness. He noticed there were a lot of people there, but each person kept to themselves. They weren't hanging out with any family members, no group of friends. Each person was pretty much isolated and didn't seem to care about anyone else. They didn't even take selfies, Josh. It was that bad. Can you believe that? Insane. Now, as your traveler is wondering why their bodies look so withered, he notices the inhabitants didn't have regular human hands to eat. Instead, they had these long, unwieldy ladles that would serve as their hands, and they would use these ladles to dip into the river of rice soup to eat. Now, the problem was that the ladles were so long that the soup would just spill all over the place, and none of the rice soup would reach their mouth as they were trying to drink from it. By this time, our traveler has had enough of hell, and he decides to go check out what heaven is like. When he gets to heaven, he's shocked. He notices the scenery in heaven looks exactly like what he saw in hell. Same charming village, same majestic mountains, and the same river of rice soup running through the center of the village. The only difference he saw was in the people. When he looked at the villagers, he noticed that the inhabitants of heaven live as a loving community. The people in heaven were spending time together with their families, they were with their friends laughing, they were filled with joy, having a great time, and most of them even looked like they had a little pudge around their waistline. Josh, did I also mention in heaven they didn't have any cell phones? No, I made that part up. Now our traveler is rather perplexed as the inhabitants of heaven also have the same long ladles in place of hands, but there was a big difference in how they behaved. In heaven, instead of focusing merely on themselves, they would focus on taking care of their neighbors. And when it was time to eat, one person would dip his ladle into the river of rice soup and then feed his neighbor, and then his other neighbor in turn would dip their ladle in the river of rice soup and then in turn feed his neighbor. I feed you, you feed me. We take care of each other. It's kind of like the famous American idiom, you scratch my back, I'll bring out the wine. Isn't that how it goes? Yeah, whatever. The concept of that story really puts the essence of life into perspective. Can you imagine what our society would look like if our mindset would be, what can I do to serve you? Instead of the current, what can you do to serve me type of attitude. Josh, you remember King Julian from Madagascar, the cute little lemur?
Please feel free to bask in my glow.
Funny thing about him is that he's so self-centered and flamboyant who thinks the world revolves around him. He would say things like, if it's not about me, it's not important. It sounds funny, but that's a very stupid and narcissistic attitude to have. No society with that type of attitude that it's all about me is gonna survive for long. I remember an old quote from my favorite archbishop, the great Fulton Sheen. He once said, you must remember to love people and use things rather than to love things and use people. What a concept. Loving people and using things. Can you imagine what our society would look like if we were to apply that to each of our lives? There's a story in the Bible where Jesus calls his dirty dozen together as they're all arguing amongst themselves about who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom. So Jesus hears their bickering, he gets fed up, and he gives them a verbal slap for talking all that nonsense. Look at what he tells them. You know the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise over them. Meaning, the people of this current age, this current system, all they care about is being great and being the big dog so they can have control over you. So Jesus says, Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Jesus taught that true greatness comes from serving others, not from seeking power or status. And it's interesting that a few days later at the Last Supper, after they've eaten, he even washed the disciples' feet, which back in that culture was the job of the least important member of the household. Jesus showed us that no task is too humble when it comes to caring for and to serving one another. So for all you Mannies out there that want to make an impact on this world, if you really want to be great and make the world a better place, don't try to be like King Julian and make life all about you. Instead, focus on being a servant. You are important, but life is not all about you. You want to get promoted at a job? When you're done doing your normal duties, go to your supervisor and tell them, hey, what else can I help you with? Try to add value with anything that you do. Most people are super lazy nowadays.
Let's go, let's get to work.
Come on, dudes, chill out.
And if you have a servant's attitude that adds value to your company, I can almost guarantee you will get a promotion real quick. You teenagers out there, instead of having your parents do everything for you, why don't you take initiative and ask your mom and dad, what can you do to make their lives easier? If you're oblivious on how you can help your parents out, check out this video right here, and that will guide you on how to start being useful around your own house. You can start today by making your own bed and cleaning up after yourself. Treat your siblings with kindness. Be appreciative for what your parents do for you. Tell them thank you for the food and clothes they provide. It costs them a lot of money to provide these things for you. Treat your teachers with respect. Heck, you can even ask your teachers privately. I mean, you don't want to be known as a teacher's pet, but ask them privately if they need help with anything. They may even give you some extra credit. That's going to help your grade. Learn to humble yourself and start caring about other people besides yourself. And remember, if you want to experience heaven on earth, learn to feed others first. Hopefully, they will learn from your example and in turn will feed you as well. Let's strive to make our world a better place, one act of service at a time. Going to Fai Tai and Wan Shi Rui. We'll see you next time.